don't know how we missed it, but somehow we were not aware that the Ironman Championships were going to be going on while we were on the Big Island. How cool is that? It became very apparent once we got to the airport and when we started driving to our hotel. All along Highway 19, you could see athletes training for the cycling competition.
Hi, we're getting ready to go down to the Kona start-finish line for Ironman. The Ironman World Championship is tomorrow, Saturday, the 8th of October. Today we have with us
Kathy, Susie, Georgia,
and we're all going to go down and watch the Ironman staging areas and get an idea of where the good venues for tomorrow to view the event will be.
Georgia went to check on volunteering for this event. We'll have to see what she finds out. Here we see the board where all the male athletes are signing in. And apparently someone wanted to make sure everyone knew that he was the first to sign in. Susie and I just found out that Marvin and Georgia did get to volunteer, and apparently they got put to work right away. So let's go see what they're up to. So apparently these two have volunteered to help with photographs. So now I'm photographing them, taking photographs. Okay, so tell me what you guys are doing.
Well, Georgia and I have volunteered for the Ironman. This is the Ironman Museum, and has posters from 1981. In 1982, there were two events, one in February, one in October, and they switched the October format at that time. And here are the posters that they have. In the back, they have the medals. Your photo? It's free. It's free.
And you email it.
Email it to yourself.
Up 35 years tomorrow on the start line of the Ironman World Championship. All right, gentlemen, welcome on in. 897 coming on through is 687. Greg, 339. Paul, how you feeling, champ? Fine, that's great. Hopefully tomorrow you feel fine as well. 339, there it is. Bo Pershed coming on through from Sweden. He's a photographer.
Well, he's from Karlskrona. Karlskrona is just down the road from Kalmar, where they have Ironman Sweden. So we say lycka till to him. 2,500 athletes are going to be checking in today, ladies and gentlemen, representing 82 nations, countries and territories, all here to celebrate 40 years of dreams at our Ironman World Championship, brought to you by Amazon. Ladies and gentlemen, we continue to welcome these brothers into our competitions on the big support team with them. I know there are a lot of people who see that in Ironman.
There are a lot of people who plan their vacation time around being volunteers for this, and they come in weeks early to set up registration. A lot of the local people in the Kona region volunteer, and it's a chance for them to come down and to participate in community activities. And those were more the people doing registration, the things that would happen well in advance of the event. I mean, Georgia and I were basically there working 2 days, once in the reception museum area with the photos, and then the next day the real work, which was in the transition areas, helping the men on my part and the women on Georgia's part. The other thing that impressed me were the announcers, how they stayed through the entire event. There was no secondary announcer for the people that weren't pros. They all got formal announcement. They would pick up the number of the competitor as they came towards the finish line, and they would say the person's name, "You are an Ironman." And I'm sure that was recorded and could be sent to the family and certainly to the competitor. And I'm sure each one of them felt very special when that was announced.
So would you volunteer for this again?
Oh, in a second. I would love to go back and do this again. It was fun. It was not physically taxing, but I had to stay on my toes. There was a mix-up with one competitor and his equipment. I was able to straighten that out in a matter of seconds just from being observant of what was going on around the room. So, yeah, I would say that I would love to go back and do this again. More than one competitor thanked us, the volunteers, for volunteering. Many of them had been organizers in their country of Ironman events, and they recognized how valuable the volunteers were, and many of them thanked us. And I didn't know who these people were, but some of them, were the head of their Ironman competition from whatever country they were from, and so this was kind of special too. My daughter and I decided we would try to see if we could volunteer to help with the event, since we like sporting events and have both competed on a fairly high level in sporting events. And to our surprise, there were opportunities for us to help out in the transition tents. And we both got to transition the athletes from their bicycling phase to their running phase. And what we did was when a cyclist had deposited their bicycle with the crew, they would come into the tent and they would hand us their helmet, take off their cycling shoes, and most of them would change into running shorts from their cycling shorts and into a different jersey than the one that they had worn for their bicycling event. We would offer them water, other drinks if they needed them, and apply sunscreen to help them prepare for the run that was coming up. There were lots of variations. The pros came in, they knew exactly what they were doing, and they transitioned from cycling gear to their running gear in probably under a minute. I think the fastest one we saw was 35 seconds. And then there were some people who were not competing to win, but competing to show themselves that they could finish the event. And if those people came in, they were generally much more leisurely about their changing. We helped them in whatever fashion we could. Some of the people were obviously worn out from the event. Their cycling event, I think it was 112 miles they had done after they had done their swimming of 2.4 miles. And so we would evaluate them to see if they were safe to go on. And I know at least one of the women was referred directly to the medical tent, and that recommendation was made to one or two of the men in the men's tent that they consider not going on to run their marathon distance. For the people that volunteered, we had special shirts. This was the crew shirt, and you had to have this on to even get access to the area where the Ironman event was being held back behind the scenes, behind the gates. In our tent we had probably 15 people who were helping the riders. Considering that I think there were 2,000 competitors, I think we handled it quite well. Here is the transition crew armband that you would wear, and here's the swag bag. And this was the 40th anniversary, or the 40th event of the Ironman. And they had things like plant-based protein, another plant-based protein, and some other stuff that I'm sure is very good and healthy and good for you, but not necessarily for me as a non-competitor. So Ironman was a very good thing. It gave me and my daughter something to do, and it just felt like we were part of the crew. We would put sunscreen on the competitors if they wanted it, and we would ask them where they wanted it applied. We got to the point where we could apply full body sunscreen in about 15 seconds. We'd have two hands just full of the stuff and go up and down each leg, each arm, over the shoulders, rub the ears, and then if they wanted it we would go under the eyes and on the face.
And then part of the reason why you don't have video from when you were behind the scenes doing it on race day is because...
Well, first of all, people were changing in and out of clothing, and it would have been a big confidential issue.
They were naked.
Well, yeah, they were naked. The other thing that I learned was if you have to go to the bathroom while you're riding on your bicycle, you don't get off, and some of the shorts that we got were kind of soaked.
Ew, okay, that was interesting.
And we wore gloves, and we would clean down the area, and it was no big deal, really. And it happened on more than one occasion that people came in like that. We had sanitary wipes that we would go over each chair after a rider had been in it, and we wiped down pretty much everything constantly. So it was kept clean, and people that had special needs, we tried to attend to them.
Was there any one moment that stands out for you on that day?
The thing that surprised me was when the first competitor came in. Obviously one of the elite pros, he was actually many minutes ahead of all the other pros from the bicycling event, and how quickly he transitioned. And this was my first time witnessing it, and some of the experienced volunteers took care of his needs, and he was one that took under a minute to transition from the cycling event to the running event, and he was off. And I think he was the one that ultimately won it too. So it was pretty impressive, and once I got the hang of it, it was actually kind of fun.
what time did you have to report, and how many hours did you spend on transition day?
On transition day, we got there just around noon, and we stayed until well after dark. It was probably about 7 hours, 8 hours. They did feed us. They had a sandwich bar for all the volunteers. You could also get chips. They had drinks, and if you had time, you could go get them. But when the rush of the riders came in, and it was a bell-shaped curve just like with any event, there were a few elite people that came in first, and then the numbers kept picking up, and then we had the whole room, and we could seat about 70 people inside our tent, and it was full and standing room for a little while, and then it started to taper off, and at the very end there were just 1 or 2 people coming in. You did ask me if there was an impressive thing. I think there was a Japanese gentleman who was in his 80s who was competing, and he had already climbed Mount Everest, and he'd done a lot of other things, and my hats were off to him. He was impressive.
So the volunteers come back more than 1 year?
Yes, we had people in the tent that had been volunteering for decades, and they kind of were a good source of information. It was fun. I would do it again. Seeing the crowd, seeing the excitement, and just being part of it was a true experience.
Alongside the athletes and making sure that they get their nutrition superb. Then they come back to transition and the bike catchers. Wow. How hard is your job? I mean, those athletes value their bikes more than they value their significant others on race week. Not really, but you know what I mean. I'm just making a point here. He's also your 1994 Ironman World Champion. To take you through the next piece of the show, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Greg Welch.
All right, thank you, Paul. How is everyone tonight? Yeah, baby. Mahalo. Mahalo to all the volunteers. You know what? This is the 40th anniversary. We all know that. We've been talking about it all week long. But if the athletes don't have a race, they can't make a living, they can't get a world championship crown. But if volunteers don't turn up, they just simply won't have anything. So it's all about you tonight, it's about you on race day. Thank you very much for keeping on coming back year after year after year. So thank you.
The top 3 women all finished in well under 9 hours at the 2018 Ironman World Championship, brought to you by Amazon.
Did you know that the top 4 women broke last year's, well actually the 2016 world course record here? Yeah, the top 4 went under 8:46.46. Absolutely insane.
Thank you all for the huge success that you made the Ironman World Championship.
If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and leave any comments or questions below. And be sure to subscribe to our channel. Once you have subscribed, click the bell icon and you'll be notified when we post a new video. Thanks for watching.